I made Scientific Magic Chapter 1, The Sorcerer's Apprentice and Magic. Chapter 1 Wizard Apprentice and Magic. Thirst, hotness, sleepiness. Under the influence of strong discomfort, Lin slowly opened his eyes. What came into view was a ceiling covered with cobwebs, and the strange scene around made Lin's head shut down for a moment. This is a hut of less than 30 square meters. Probably due to disrepair, the surrounding wooden walls look very dilapidated, and the grey frame is full of dust and insects and ants. The interior of the hut is also in chaos, with many sundries and garbage randomly piled up in the corners, and dozens of unbound book pages scattered on the ground, leaving only a narrow path for passage. Where am I? Could it be that he was kidnapped? Lin rubbed his dizzy brain, sat up with effort, and secretly beat a drum in his heart. He can be sure that this is definitely not any place he knows, so Lin has to prepare for the worst. He has a high probability of being kidnapped. 071, show me where I am now, Lin asked subconsciously in his mind, but after several seconds, he didn't get any response. Even the auxiliary intelligence is blocked. Lin's heart suddenly sank, and he subconsciously rolled over and got out of bed to find a way to escape, but unexpectedly found that there was a sharp short sword on the head of his bed. And a crumpled piece of paper was still clutched in his right hand. Rolls of parchment. Lin subconsciously held the dagger in his hand, and finally felt a sense of security. After hesitating for a while, he opened the crumpled parchment roll, on which were written many ghostly symbols and complicated symbols, making it even more disturbing. What puzzled him was that he could understand what was written on it. Time is running out. The priest of the tribunal discovered our tracks. We met at the agreed place in your town before moonlight day, took 17 seekers' copper coins, and followed the signs. Please be careful, Johnny. The moment he understood the above text, an unexplained fear suddenly surged into his heart, and then a memory faintly appeared in Lin's mind. In a wide square, a noisy crowd gathered together, their expressions were frenzied and excited, and they kept shouting something. In the center of the square stood a giant high platform. The bishop dressed in a white silk robe stood in front of the high platform, and raised the scepter in his hand amidst the enthusiastic shouts of the crowd. The next moment, the crimson flames rose high, and several figures could be vaguely seen twisting and struggling in the sea of flames, and the painful wailing was endless. What is this? Are you making a movie? The cruel scene that emerged in his mind made Lin shudder. But why do I have these inexplicable memories in my brain, and who is Johnny at the end of this letter? Suddenly, as if Lin had thought of something, he rushed to the big water tank in the house, staring at the scene reflected on the water surface, his pupils constricted. The slightly trembling fingers caused ripples on the water surface due to excitement, but Lin still clearly saw what he looked like at this time. It was a boy about 18 or 19 years old, wearing a patched linen robe, with a slightly slender figure, his pale face was covered with dust, his short brown hair was messy. And his dark pupils were full of fright. Look. Could it be that I have time traveled? Lin took a breath, and this ridiculous idea came to his mind, but he couldn't find another explanation besides this. Although before he crossed over, the Federation had achieved great results in brain development and neuron research, and the brain chip transplantation technology had also been extremely developed. But it is completely impossible to implant consciousness into a second body to achieve rebirth. He also didn't feel that he was worth some people's painstaking deception. Realizing this, Lin no longer had any luck, and sat down on the ground. While being shocked, a large number of complicated memories surged up again in his mind. After spending half an hour sorting out the memories that suddenly appeared, Lin barely understood his current situation. He traveled to a place a bit like medieval Europe, where there are many countries fighting with each other, and the most powerful country among them belongs to the Seekers Empire where he is now. And above the mortal imperial power, there is an existence called the Holy See, who believes in a named Ella, a proper monotheism, and its teachings are also the same as creationism. In addition to spreading beliefs everywhere and fooling people, another important proposition of the Holy See is to hunt wizards. What makes Lin feel particularly bad is that the boy he traveled through seems to be a wizard. No, to be precise, he is a wanted wizard apprentice. Lin looked at the crumpled parchment in his hand with quite a headache. What are these things? It's nothing more than passing through inexplicably. He didn't give some better treatment. He was in a state of being chased and killed when he first came up. It is not guaranteed that one day he will be tied to the stake and burned. Speaking of which, the predecessor was quite deadly. Itself is the illegitimate son of a certain viscount in the Seekers Empire, named Karl Esterland. Although they are not very popular on weekdays, they still have enough food and clothing. In this chaotic world where the kingdoms are constantly fighting, it is already a blessing to be able to eat enough and have clothes to wear. If he still has such a heavy identity in a relatively stable environment, coupled with the knowledge of other worlds in his mind, he will be able to flourish in a few years. And it is not impossible to start an industrial revolution and bring down the Holy See. Possible. But this kid was fooled by a wizard named Kelu, and let him have a good life. However, he insisted on running to be the other party's apprentice, not to mention running around, and even eating the last meal without the next meal. Just 4 days ago, his mentor, Kelu, intended to abduct the Duke's daughter, but it was a pity that he failed to fool her this time, so the court received the news the next day. And arrested Kelu before he had time to escape. After getting the news, Karl hid in this secret stronghold, terrified all day long. During the half a year of running here and there with his mentor Kelu, Karl had personally witnessed the scene of a wizard apprentice being burned to death on the stake. I didn't dare to sleep for several days, and finally lost consciousness in despair and fear, and then I crossed over by myself. This is going to be troublesome. Recalling this, Lin whispered with a headache, and even considered whether to just jump back and forget it. Besides him, Kelu has 6 other disciples, none of whom should have been caught yet, and I happen to know the names and appearances of these people. So maybe being a tainted witness is also a way out. It's a big deal to pretend to convert, and regret it every day. However, after thinking about it, Lin decisively threw this somewhat dark thought behind him. He really couldn't believe those guys who preached the doctrine all day long and wanted to catch all wizards and burn them to death. Even if he voluntarily surrendered and was arrested, the possibility of torture is not small. Forget about betraying teammates. He is not this kind of person. Throwing away those unrealistic fantasies, Lin, who calmed down, resisted the shock in his mind, thinking about how to escape the pursuit of the court. For the ancient world where there were no cameras and criminals were identified purely by hand drawing and impression flow, it might be a good way to abscond in casual clothes. As long as you leave this duchy, it will become extremely difficult to catch him again. Fortunately, the original body seems to have practiced some swordsmanship. A few years ago, he won the attention of the Viscount's father, and even solved several bandits who harassed the territory alone. Of course, the premise is that you keep a low profile and don't casually reveal the magic you have learned, so as not to attract the pursuit of the court. Wait, magic? Lin En was stunned suddenly, and then concentrated on searching for memories in his mind, and then his face became more and more weird. Because he discovered that the self in his memory seems to be able to use magic. This is not the usual blindfolded tricks of the ancient warlocks, or tricks played indiscriminately to fool people. But real magic.